let's get to our next caller here. We have Andrew who's calling in from Florida. Andrew says that atheism is bad for children and families, and atheism supports divorce, which is interesting. Andrew, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hello, gentlemen. I see trends, especially here in the West, where secular families are much more likely to get to embrace and adopt divorce and actually get divorced or live together without being married, and then religious people. So I think that trend is harmful. It's caused mostly by secularism. So when I say atheist, I really mean like secularists.
Okay.
The one question I'm going to ask is, why do most people get married? Well, not most people, but why do a lot of people, especially like in the States, why do they get married?
This is a good question.
To develop a lifelong committed bond.
Mm-hmm. But is it not like a religious institution?
Yes, it is a religious institution, primarily.
So I don't think secularism is. Yeah, I mean, I was married at a courthouse, so you can. There's secular marriages as well, but I don't think being an atheist has anything. Well, actually, well, if we're going to look at it, the vast majority of people that are married are probably going to be Christian, because Christianity dominates America.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Am I right there?
I think Andrew clarified, though, just to bolster Andrew's claim, right? Because he did. I think he clarified to say secularism instead of atheism. Okay. So in that respect, I think I would agree with you, Andrew, in that, secularism, especially in the United States, right? There is a trend between more people in the U.S. being secular and divorce rates going up more. But my question is this a bad thing necessarily?
That's where I was going.
Right?
That's where I was going.
Yeah. Can divorce absolutely hamper families? Yes. I totally think it can. But is every divorce bad? I don't think so. I think some divorces are necessary. In fact, I think most divorces are necessary, right? A divorce is the result of a marriage that doesn't work.
Yeah, it failed.
Yeah.
Nobody gets divorced because they're so happy.
Right. So why would you want to be and continue in a relationship or in a family lifestyle that isn't making you happy?
Yeah. I see. That's a good point. If it stops making you happy, you should leave. That is complicated because it's mostly a problem because there's children involved.
Mm-hmm. I was going to get at that too, Andrew. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I mean, but how many kids? Well, I guess adults now. How many adults do you know that grew up in a household with parents that hated each other but stayed together for the kids? How do those people look at marriage now? Most of them are single because marriage just seems like a horrible thing. You know how much trauma comes out of being in a household with two people that don't want to be together? And those are the people that are in charge of your life? That is very traumatic.
Yeah.
That's where arguments start. That's where abuse starts. I don't think divorce is the culprit here. Yeah.
I would say, no, divorce is not really the symptom, right? It's harmful relationships. I would say that two wrongs don't make a right. That separation, can take kids out of toxic environments. It can. It doesn't guarantee it. But I would also say that what causes toxic environments, we should look into that. I think religious people and secularists can agree to that. But divorce doesn't solve these problems. You bring that toxicity to your next relationship, and so the children is part of two toxic households now instead of one. I think it's easier to fix one toxic household than bring them into two different toxic households and be separated from both parents.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, that's possible.
And I think that you're right in the sense that, look, it's not like divorce isn't necessarily going to solve that base issue there if it's a personal problem, right? If it's a toxic individual, as you mentioned. But sometimes it's not even just toxic people. I think divorce happens because two people just can't get along in the way that they could, right? I agree with you that, there's some relationships that shouldn't have happened in the first place, right? Because there's something else going on that should have been addressed. But some people are married for 50 years and they're different after 50 years. You know, they just change. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's just how life is. You know, maybe the question is marriage the institution that we should be coveting as the greatest thing in the world? Or are there other kinds of institutions that we can develop that, you know, can circumvent some of those issues? I don't know. But I don't think that divorce in itself is a bad thing. I do think it's sometimes the thing you have to do.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think what caused the problems in the first place, I don't think divorce will fix it. I think the problem will persist because I think you guys would agree, most of the time it's a personality problem between both spouses. They've developed a personality problem. And I think this is where we will disagree.
It can, I mean, that can happen, but divorces happens for a myriad of reasons. It could be one person cheats or one person can't stop lying. It could be two people that argue. There's so many reasons.
Develops an addiction. It could be somebody has a job that lets them stay away from their family and can't take care of them in the same role. I mean, there's a million reasons we could look at it here, you know. But anyway, go ahead.
All right. Sure. What I was trying to do is give one example, I guess.
Okay, sure. Sure.
So one example would be a personality problem. I don't see how divorce would even fix that. How do you fix a personality problem if it's with you psychologically? And it's just, I think it's harmful.
Well, let's stop right there, because divorce isn't fixing that. What it's fixing is the having the freedom for those two people to make decisions independently from each other, right? Mm-hmm. And from that family unit. That's not going to fix the psychological issues. That's what like therapy and stuff is for, right? But divorce is going to separate you legally, financially, and honestly, and for some people morally, from the duties that come with being in a marriage, right? Yeah. And sometimes that means family caretaker roles are changed. And that does have an impact on the child if there's a child involved, right? Inevitably, it almost always does. And that is unfortunate. And I regret that happens. But that child is also going to be affected by an unhappy marriage, right? So you don't win by just keeping the people together and hoping things go well either, right? There is something that has to be changed there, regardless of whether it's a divorce or whether that's going to counseling or what. If your argument is more people should go to marriage counseling, sure. Yeah. I'll go with you there. But I do think divorce is a solution. I don't think it's a solution for everyone, but it's definitely a solution.
I mean, one thing I want to look at is like just historically how marriage has been looked at. Because if you look at the history of how it works, it's God, husband, family, right? Isn't that the hierarchy? Yeah, sure. Because I mean, marriage is like a Christian institution. So I'm just going with that angle.
I mean, marriage isn't really. I mean, marriage is older than Christianity
in America. Yeah, in America,
views it as
that's
a
how they do it. Yeah, sure. That's how they look at it. Yeah. So coming at it from that angle, there are so many relationships that continue just because the times women literally didn't have a choice. Like if you get divorced, your life is just over after that, pretty much. So like looking at it,
open up their own bank accounts without their
you know what I mean?
I mean, there's a lot of social factors as why people got married that weren't for like reasons we would consider good today. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Like you just stay because you stay. That's just what we do. Like literally that's just what we do. Divorce is something we talk about. And that creates just this horrible cycle. And that's why we have so many, like I said, people that are single today because marriage is not even something they could look at because it was so traumatic with their experience with it. If those two parents had divorced and maybe possibly find a happier life on the other side of marriage, like that's always going to be better for the kids.
It's true. That's true. There's a lot of people who grow up in divorced households who have unconventional family structures, right? Stepfathers and stepmothers who are quite happy with that relationship, like who do benefit from that environment. To say that it's always a negative, I think is also, too bold of a claim to make.
Yeah, good things can come out of alternative ways of doing the conventional, following the conventional wisdom. Like you can have better step parents, right? Like a father may become alcoholic. That does happen, you know. But I just want to say overall, the statistics seem to show that children who remain in the nuclear family tend to do better off psychologically and financially throughout their entire life than children who are divorced, because they always spend less time with both biological parents after a divorce. And I think one cause of all these marriage problems, I think, is the way we approach dating and relationships. Like, we keep it solely to the romance, and the parents have no say in who the person dates. It's just whoever pleases you sexually the most. And so when you remove the community, and it could be church or friends or family, when you remove that from the equation, you're just letting your genitals make the decision for you, instead of people around you saying, oh, this person is good for you, this person isn't good for you. And I think religion really enhances that part of your life.
Here's what I'll say to that. One, sorry, one of my lights went out. Now my face is kind of half dark. Sorry about that. But two things. First thing, you talk about studies, and I've seen this, by the way, right? Childhood outcomes of different family structures, right? Does the nuclear family tend to support better outcomes? The problem with that is that nuclear families, economically speaking, tend to be in a higher category than other kinds of family structures, right? So there's a lot of economic factors at play. Economics plays more into marriage than most people really give it credit for. But I really think that the thing that when you look at those families, and by the way, I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with this, right? If you have a nuclear family structure and you're happy with that, and that's great for the child, that's fantastic. But those families are also generally coming from more privileged backgrounds, and that just seems to be the case. The other part in talking about this is this idea that it's just passions, it's just emotions, it's just your genitals making these decisions. I'm not sure if that's true. If you actually ask people who get divorced why, that's the reasons why they leave. I'm living with my girlfriend right now. We've been dating for almost 3 years. We're not married. And yes, I have sexual compatibility with her, but like we have a lot of other things that work with us too. That that's not the only reason why I'm with them. And to say that we need a marriage to enhance our relationship, a marriage is just going to give us a certificate. It's not going to do anything extra special for our relationship, right? Those foundations came from outside of the institution of marriage. It just came from, I don't know, developing our own lives as people, I guess. But I don't think marriage is going to solve that either. This idea that people are going to be lustful and want other things. That's true whether people are married or not, But anyway, I've said a lot.
That was actually something else I was going to say. When we talk about all these causes and what is necessary, it's literally a piece of paper.
Yeah.
It's a piece of paper that joins you legally. So anything that happens within your relationship is going to happen with or without that piece of paper. The only thing that piece of paper does is makes it harder for that relationship to end at some point. So the divorce thing, of course, people separating, we could talk about that causing issues within a family dynamic. But as far as actual marriage, the institution, marriage being something that keeps people happy or keeps the relationship healthy, that's literally not a thing. It's not a thing. The relationship is going to be the relationship with or without that piece of paper. So
yep. That's true for kids as well. It's not going to matter for the kids whether or not the parents have that piece of paper, right? It's whether the parents are in the kids' lives. So
yeah. Okay. Okay, I get there was 2 points there, so I guess we have time for one only. You say it's just a piece of paper. Buying a house is not just a piece of paper, right? Like you can say, "Oh, I live here," but when you sign the contract to buy a house, you're committed to that house forever, and you have a certain status.
No, you're not.
Wait, you can sell that house.
What? Yeah, you can sell a house. You're not committed to a house forever.
Right, but because you signed the paper, it is officially your house. You have responsibility
according to the government. Yeah,
well, legally now.
Yeah, there's legal implications for signing it. Yeah, but what does that have to do with marriage?
Right. So when you get married, you develop boundaries and terms and conditions for your relationship. And I think your girlfriend will feel a lot safer if she was wedded up, because then there's a lifelong promise of you're never going to leave her. And so I feel like
hey, but divorce exists though. That's not a promise that I'm never going to leave her. That's just the thing saying that our assets are tied together. Or
he's an atheist. He's an atheist. The secular stuff is going to come into play in their relationship. Why would that make her feel any safer to have a piece of paper?
Am I less likely?
And she's less likely to cheat. Yeah, you're less likely to cheat because now there are legal repercussions and moral repercussions if you include religion and community repercussions, and so there are much more repercussions. So it's treated with much more respect.
I'll give you that there are more repercussions. I'll let you grant you that, but it's not a guarantee. Absolutely not a guarantee. It's not a promise. Well, I guess it is kind of a promise.
It's a promise.
Yeah, it's a promise, but it's not a guarantee. It's not this
written promise.
It's not a thing that says, look, you cheated on me, so you're gonna go to jail if you do this, right? Like that's not the kind of repercussions here that we're talking about, right? Like, I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't need marriage to like have that safety of knowing that my girlfriend's never going to cheat on me. Like I just want her to just not do it. Like you know like
that's the thing. You don't need marriage in order to have a lasting, long, loving relationship, period.
Yeah.
And you don't need the protection of marriage to feel safe, because let's say Dan never gets married. Let's say they stay together for the next 15 years and he cheats on her. There's going to be the same amount of repercussions. It just won't be any legal ramifications unless they sign a lease together.
Right. Or also, like, let's say we never get married. Does that mean that my relationship isn't as meaningful because we never got married? I mean, I wouldn't think so, but.
All right. I have the perfect analogy.
Okay, go ahead.
I have an analogy. And let me know what you guys think of it.
And be quick, because sorry, we are at the end of the show, so we're gonna try to wrap things up, but we'll finish on this.
I'll be quick.
Go for it.
Analogy. Imagine the U.S. becomes friends with China.
Okay.
They can just shake hands. But isn't it better if they have a treaty with a bunch of paper and a bunch of terms and conditions? It'll enhance the relationship.
America thinks what it's growing a lot.
Yes, but also if you look at foreign policy, if you if you actually, and I'm not an expert in this, but if you've ever been to a 101 class on political science and you look at world systems, one of the most prominent theories of world systems, right? World systems theory is that we are in a state of anarchy. In other words, international agreements between countries don't actually kind of matter. There's a reason why we have fucking the Gaza situation happening right now, right? Like, yeah, those things like kind of matter a little bit, but it's nowhere near a guarantee. It's more just like a precedent. It's more just like a boundary that's kind of being set. But again, it's not a guarantee. Yeah, if we're doing international arms trade, sure, I'd like to have paper.
I would hope there's paper. Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't need that for my relationships, my interpersonal relationships with people.
That's the difference. I don't think that analogy holds up too well, because if I'm married and I cheat on my wife, then I have to deal with my wife. In international conflicts, it's going to be a little bit more to go. Like those are ramifications. Those are ramifications. So it's a different thing.
Different things there. But anyway, Andrew, does that make sense? Like, I'm really not. I hope I'm not coming off as like belittling in my tone here, because I feel like, you know, we're kind of being a little. We're having fun with this conversation, but like I am very serious about this. I don't think divorce is the sort of evil that you may have initially presented it as. If can it lead to harmful outcomes? Absolutely, but I don't think that's the divorce part. I think that's the people part of the equation.
And I was going to say the people part, because I don't think you can make any blanket statements about marriage in any way, because people are going to be people and every person is different. Every relationship is different. Thus, every marriage is going to be different. So you can't just make a blanket statement about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool. You guys made some good points. Blanket statements aren't helpful in any case. I just think marriage, my final word, is probably the best way to manage a lot of the dysfunction in human nature, especially with children involved. So, nice talk, gentlemen. Have a good one.
All right, thank you, Andrew.
I would say laws are better, but
well, the anarchists in my community would disagree, I think. But I don't know. I don't know if marriage is the institution, the be all end all institution for the best management of people. I've never been married, and I get along okay. So but maybe I was affected by other people that were married. Maybe that argument doesn't hold weight. I don't know. People are gonna love each other regardless of whether they're married or not.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. Also, it's not a Christian thing. It's been around for a long time, and people get married for lots of reasons. It used to be about land disputes and stuff. Now it's more like, I don't know, who's going to help pay off the college loans. That's what most of my people are talking about these days, anyway. But
I'm still waiting for my goat. I'm kind of pissed off about it.
Yeah. Maybe you might be staying in Okinawa a little longer than you thought.